just maybe get some general thoughts on what you accomplished in this draft.
Well, we wanted to improve our skill. We wanted to improve our size. We wanted to improve our depth. And by the end of the 7 rounds, we feel we did it.
You got a lot of size in this draft.
We got a lot of size, but it's nice to have size, but size needs to play. It needs to be able to skate. It needs to be able to pass and think. And these kids, we've watched for a long time, and they all can do that. So it's hopefully a really good group.
I feel like jumping Patrick. Yeah, I don't want to dump.
Curious about the first selection. Any hesitation with drafting anyone from Russia? Any concern there with things going on?
No. And I mean, again, some of these guys we've watched for so long, and we talked about it, and in the end, I guess Ryan and I look at it, and our staff is, we just want to have good hockey players. The number one thing is we got to make the Arizona Coyotes better. We need to make ourselves more competitive, and we want the best players in the world. So we talked over with management and upper management and Bill, and so no, we weren't too afraid.
The nice thing was too is that I got to see the player live in Russia this year. We saw him at international tournaments, so we knew the player well. It wasn't like last year where you're kind of going off of video and not knowing the player as well. So it was a very strong familiarity with him that allowed us to make a selection like that.
Of anyone that you picked today, is there anybody that stands out that you've got really high expectations for? And think there's a very high ceiling?
It's funny, as a scout, you know kind of where everybody's going to go in the draft. You know who the first rounders are. You know who the second rounders are. And we'd been at this group for so long and had so many discussions on. We'd liked almost every guy we had in every round. And I know, obviously, the earlier they go in the rounds, probably the better it should be. But that doesn't always work out that way. And we were excited to get everybody we got because we earmarked them as really talented guys in that round. So we were excited about the whole group.
I talked to Bill about this yesterday, but the ability to add 2 high-end centers at the top of the draft yesterday. First off, with Logan Cooley, we talked about him a bit. The size, I'm curious if that's a concern at all, and what differentiated when you also had, as it turned out, Shane Wright on the board as well.
Size is, I guess, always a concern, but he's big enough. There's guys that are smaller than him playing the National Hockey League.
You and me.
We looked at his frame. We looked at his genetics. We looked at how big his shoulders are. We looked at how long his arms are. The big thing for him was his motor. We loved his motor. We loved how hard he played. And maybe one of the negatives is he plays too hard sometimes. So he's going to have to be a big, strong guy. And when I say just because you're short doesn't mean you can't be strong and powerful. And we feel that he can be powerful. We feel just because he's a little bit shorter doesn't mean he can't be strong.
And just to finish off on the second part of your question, to be able to get 2 centermen like that and a guy that's extremely skilled like Logan and a guy that has the size and presence like Connor, that sets us up really nicely down the middle. And things are going to happen over the next few years with those 2 players. They're both going to have their ups and downs. Connor has a ways to go still physically to mature into that body, but it gives us a nice 1-2 punch somewhere down the line, however it be 3, 5, 7 years from now.
Can you guys give us some insight as to how that played out when you saw him still available? I think Bob McKenzie said he's a top 10 pick all day long, and yet he fell just outside the top 10. How are you monitoring that? At what point are you saying, okay, we need to make a move here?
We did a lot of research in the last week of where Connor might go, and we felt that he was in the 7 to 12 range. Sure enough, he went 11, and from our understanding, he was going 12 if we didn't pick him at 11. So there's a lot of market research that goes with that, and that's part of our job is not just to know the players, but we've got to try and get a range on where these guys might go. So when he started to go down the board from 7, that's when Bill started to get excited, and we got excited, and we're kind of asking Bill to try and get us this pick to pick him.
When comparing your draft board at the very top, obviously, we spent the whole year thinking Shane Wright was going to go number 1, and then Cooley was probably the next best center available. Were you at all surprised by how things played out there? And was that the guy you were expecting to get at number 3?
We had all kinds of scenarios. It's amazing when you don't control the draft. You have about things fly through your head and so many different scenarios. What are we going to do with the pick? For us, we felt there was a group of 3 or 4 forwards. We had to make some decisions that are hard, and we were just happy to get the guy we really wanted.
I'm sure you had a number of game plans coming in. I'm just curious, did it go according to plan?
Yeah, pretty much. You know, obviously we were picking 3. Going back, that one pick kind of really, it didn't help. Let's put it that way. And so that was what made us, the scenarios all kind of crazy. But we liked Cooley a lot. We watched him a lot. We thought he'd help us. Obviously win games, but play with his speed and energy, and so there was a lot of good players, and Logan was one of the guys we wanted.
Patrick, to answer your question, when we went from 2 to 3, it caused a little bit of anxiety, but we were still picking 3, so we knew we were going to get a heck of a player. It was just now there's a little bit more uncertainty about how it's going to play out.
There was some talk, and obviously it's just analyst talk, that there would be value with defensemen a little later in this draft. When you look at the group of guys that you got, is that how it played out?
We talked a lot about that, and I'm just looking at my list here. We took 5 of them.
Yeah.
So defensemen are incredibly important, and we did feel there's always good value in every round, but we always thought that there was going to be really good value with defensemen later in the draft. For whatever reason, I have no idea why we thought that, and why we were able to get the defenseman we did. And like Ryan said, in 3, 4, 5, 6 years, we'll find out if we were right.
And I think it's somewhat of luck that we ended up with 2 forwards and 2 defensemen out of our first 4 picks, but we're extremely happy about that we were able to get that balance. And you don't really design it that way, but the way that it ended up, that we've got the 6'7" defenseman and the 6'1" skilled defenseman, it's really nice how it ended up, and it's fortunate for us.
What did you like about Maverick Lamour besides the 6'7"? Obviously, but I mean, what else in him?
Well, he's a tremendous athlete, first of all, and I think the NHL Combine showed us that. I got a message from our sports science people, and they were really excited that we got the #1 athlete at the Combine, because that's potential. So because he's 6'7" and he moves so well and he's got the athletic ability, that's going to allow him to grow and develop and kind of continue that athleticism to the NHL. There's still a long ways to go for him, but when you have that and the way that he skates for a big man and the amount of ice that he covers defensively, it's a really nice piece of the puzzle for us to have that at 6'7".
And the other thing too is he's a 17-year-old, still a boy, has to grow into a 6'7" body. And we watched him skate and pivot and his stride, and we're all like, it's already pretty good. And then when we saw how athletic he was, and the package was just too good to pass up.
When you say the top athlete, is that simply like a result of like all the combined tests you did with?
Yeah, it was a result of basically when you put all the combine data together, he was ranked #1 based on the testing that he did there.
Okay. And did that change at all where you placed him on your draft?
No, it made us feel more comfortable. You just you see this guy, you see his hand-eye coordination for such a big man, and then when you see his test results, you're like, it just kind of confirms what you're watching.
Okay. People have also said he's the type of personality that lights up a room. And you're obviously most interested in what he does on the ice, but does that have an impact on you at all when you just really like the personality and the approach, the attitude of the kid?
For sure it does. I mean, you want people that are going to bring energy and enthusiasm, not just on the ice, but off the ice. And so often when we go through this process, it's amazing how much what we see on the ice reflects the person's personality. And with Maverick, we saw it last night. The big smile on his face, the energy that he brought, that's a huge piece to helping build the puzzle on the ice, but also in the dressing room.
And even with all our kids, at the end of the day, you're building a team, and everybody's got to fit inside that team, and you don't want too many outliers that don't want to be part of a team. And we've drafted all these kids. We've done a lot of background on all these kids, and they all want to fit into a team. And that's going forward. That's what's going to be important.
Just wanted to hear you quickly about Jeremy Langlois, the other Quebec guy. I know he's a late birthday, so he probably had extra runway to watch him play. What did you see in him through the years?
Well, I've watched him since he's been a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And him being a late birthday gave us more time to watch him. But he also has been injured, and COVID, and he plays in Cape Breton, so there's a lot of reasons you don't see him play. But every time I saw him play, I just saw a kid that could skate, had skill, had sense, didn't mind being in a situation that was just, it's been awful in Cape Breton. They just don't win any games. So to be mentally tough enough to survive that and compete and care, it makes him a special person. And then once we met him at the Combine, we saw why he is, because he's a good kid. He's a good person. So he fit into what we were looking for.
How would you rate this?
Hair? For me, it's top notch. It's pretty good.
It is. That's great.